Hi, we're in book 9 or volume 9. See, volume 9 of the Bible story. Mine has little children on the front with the artist representation of Jesus. Um, and then on the back, it has a mom right here with some kids bringing them to Jesus. And this is the back. Okay. Bible story by volume 9 by Arthur S Maxwell. And we are at part 1. Story 2, Youth Jesus Loved. Okay? How long Jesus spent with the boys and girls and babies that happy afternoon, I don't know. At last, however, he told them it was time for them all to go home to supper and to bed. Goodbye, Jesus. Goodbye, goodbye. I could hear them calling as they slowly walked away. Perhaps Jesus said to himself, "What dear children, how I love them. And now I have a little peace and quiet from all for a while." But it was not to be, for just then a young man came running towards him. Such a noble-looking lad he was, big, strong, and clean, his fine clothes telling that he belonged to the wealthy class. Nobody quite like this had ever come to Jesus before, and the Lord was glad to see him. "Good master," said the youth, kneeling respectfully, "what shall I do that I may inherit eternal life?" It was a thoughtful question and showed that the young man was thinking seriously about the future. Oh, this is so hard to, especially with it being 70 years, never, hardly, barely open. Um, okay, man had been thinking seriously about the future. People had told him that Jesus was preaching about the kingdom in which there would be no death and while everybody would live forever. And he had come to find out how he could share in it. Looking tenderly into the young man's earnest, upturned face, Jesus said, "You know the commandments. Do not commit adultery, do not kill, do not steal, do not bear false witness, defraud not, honor thy father and mother." "Master," replied the youth eagerly, "all these I have all these have I observed from my youth." Clearly this fine lad loved God and wanted to do right. As a child, he had memorized the 10 Commandments, and he still knew them by heart. They were the guiding rules of his life. No wonder that him, Jesus beholding him, loved him. Jesus saw all the good in him and all the good he might do in the days to come. This noble youth uh, could become a great church leader, a mighty champion of his kingdom of love. "You lack one thing," Jesus said. "Just one thing?" I can hear the young man saying. "Only one? What is it, Lord? Tell me and I will do it. Anything, anything, but anything boon, for the rich boon of eternal life." "I tell you," said Jesus, "if you want to be perfect, sell everything you have, and give it to the poor, and you will have treasures in heaven. Then come, take up the cross, and follow me." Joy left the young man's face as though a light had gone out inside him. And then it has a beautiful William Hitchison painting right here. You can tell it's the face of his representation of Jesus is different than the others. And there's the book. There's the illustration. And you can definitely tell the face is different. Okay? And the caption reads, "A rich young ruler who said he had always kept the commandments respectfully came to Jesus and sincerely asked, 'Good master, what shall I do that I may inherit eternal life?'" And that, okay. And let's finish the story. He turned his eyes away from Jesus, thinking hard. What the price? What was this the price for eternal life? I must he sell his property and give away everything he owned to the poor? Must he become like these Galilean fishermen and live in poverty the rest of his life? You really don't want us to live in poverty, really. Okay, let me get back to this. He couldn't do that. He was asking too much. For a moment there must have been an awful silence as the young man made up his mind. Then, without another word, he slowly turned away and went away sorrowfully, for he had great possessions. Jesus must have been sorry too. Perhaps he longed to call the young man back and make things easier for him. But he didn't. He saw that the youth's great lack was sympathy for others. He wanted eternal life for himself, but not for the sad and hungry about him. He had tried to keep the Ten Commandments exactly as they were written, but he failed to see what God wants most of the most is a loving heart moved with compassion for those in need. But before you blame the youth for what he did, think about it. Think about yourself. Jesus, beholding you, loves you. But perhaps he is saying to you right now, you lack one thing. It could be unselfishness. It could be a forgiving spirit. It could be a gentleness or polite, polite, politeness. My southern accent sometimes gets me. Oh. You could be respected for your. It could be respect for your parents. It could be one of these things. But you had better find out what it is, for that one thing could keep you out of heaven. It could rob your eternal life. And when Jesus points it out, don't go away sorrowful. Instead, kneel before him and said, "Dear Lord, supply the thing I lack. Make me perfect in thee." And then, of course, it has the little illustration here on the side. Yeah, it looks like it's a Hitchison too. And there's the little illustration. I'll try to get it in focus. And you see Jesus up here at the top with his disciples, and the young man turning away, feeling sorry. I, it's always been taught And it's just, questionable. And if you think about it, some people do think that, but he don't really want you to live. I mean, you got to think. A few stories before, um, he gave you talent. He gave the talents to the people, and I mean, uh, anyway, that was part one, story two. So I'm gonna take the break, and then I'll be back, and we'll start the rest of the stories in volume 9.